It is always good to welcome new friends to the program, and of course, a new friend that we made when we started our venture here on the World Wide Web. Rico Muhammad is joining us. He, along with Chuck Snow, co-hosts the Rates and Lanes podcast. You may remember Chuck was with us last week on the show. And Rico, good morning. Good to have you back. How you doing?
Good morning, Dave. Thanks for having me back. I'm doing very well. My football teams ain't faring too well. At least my college football team ain't faring too well. But other than that, we're doing pretty good.
Who's your college team? And good morning to
Um,
you.
well, I'm originally from Greenville, South Carolina, so I'm a Clemson Tigers fan.
Whoo, man, I got to tell you, there are a lot of LSU fans that are very upset with you guys, too, because you're affecting their ranking by not winning more football games. And there are a lot of people at Notre Dame who are, laughing themselves silly because you guys got beat by a Notre Dame transfer quarterback in Steve Angeli, although he's been one of the great sleepers. I'm sorry about that, dude. Welcome back as well. How's your pro team doing?
My pro team, Carolina Panthers, they actually pulled one out of the hat yesterday and looked like they had a post for a change.
Well, and hopefully that Bryce draft give up that they engaged in might actually benefit them at some point. What is going on, Rico? What is happening in the wide world of trucking over in your neck of the woods?
Well, I'm independent contractor, so running under my own authority, and things are not as best as they could be, but they're definitely not. I think we're starting to hit the bottom. I think we've actually already hit the bottom, and I think things are starting to finally stabilize a little bit for us independent contractors out here.
You want to expand on that a little bit? Because it sounds really hopeful.
What I mean by that is that it's starting to feel like that the at least on the spot market and some of the dealings with some shippers is that you're starting to see a little bit of stabilization when it comes to price. Now, we hadn't got the volume back, what we need to do, because we still have a glut of carriers. So, the industry is supply and demand, and right now we still have way more supply. And unfortunately, in order to get some of this stuff to really get back to the way we want it to look, we're going to have to lose a lot more capacity.
Do you see, is there a trend that you're noticing where more fleets are selling more trucks now? There was a point where, you used to see the trucks lined up against the fence, something's happening because the trucks are on the fence. But they're selling trucks now, I think, more than in past, man, I hate to say recessionary periods, but all signs indicate that we're heading towards a recession if we don't do something to change course.
Well, it kind of is what it is, and I think you're starting to see a lot more, especially larger fleets that they may be reducing their fleet size and going back down, because right now in this environment, especially, it's not necessarily about, and we preach this every day on the podcast, not about how much you make, it's about how much you can keep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's like the video game where you're picking up those coins along the road,
Absolutely.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
great analogy. And also, I think that from a safety standpoint, with a lot more enforcement being taken place when it comes to the English language proficiency, I think that's also having an effect. I'm not sure if it's having a big enough effect to cause the rates to may necessarily go up a whole lot, but I think it is starting to, because there's a real safety issue component behind it. I'm all for anybody that wants to get into the industry, but you need to be able to be safe in order to do it. And right now we got a lot of stuff that's hurting the industry from a safety standpoint, and that's not the only issue that we're having to deal with, but that is a large issue. And I think that by states starting to crack down on that, I think it's starting to make safety come back to the forefront for a lot of carriers as well.
Yeah, it's kind of strange too, because that's becomes so politicized. It becomes racial. It becomes cultural. It becomes religious. There are so many components get thrown into that, and then you put this, you ice this entire cake with safety. Safety is that icing on the cake. How do you argue against safety? So there's that. Okay, look, the devil's advocate says, okay, this guy's been driving in this country for 15 years. He's never had a ticket, never had a ding, and he gets into a fender bender, and now we find out he doesn't really speak English that well. So how did he get from there to here without being safe already? You know, there's a real dichotomy there, I think.
Yeah, I think that the states have a lot. The government has a lot to have a lot to blame on this, because they never should have been licensed, in my opinion. My humble opinion, that this should have been stopped at the licensing level. It should have never gotten to the point where they even got the ability to get a license to drive a CDL. I mean, it's one thing to have to be able to drive and be able to do what you need to do, but in order to get a commercial driver's license, I think that there should have been a little bit more, a lot stricter requirements started from the very front end.
It's interesting, too, by the way, if you check out one of the top stories in CDL Life and one of the top stories in our partner Landline, Arkansas has set its sights on hiring qualified truck drivers, all of it in the wake of the recent visa and ELP enforcement that has put nearly 300 drivers in that state out of service. The Arkansas Trucking Association President Shannon Newton says that Act 604 has put pressure on the state's drivers to demonstrate, of course, English proficiency and possess the proper work visas if required. And over in Landline, Dave, a fleet compliance management company petitioned the FMCSA to take steps towards ensuring proof of legal status before a CDL is issued. In a petition dated August the 28th, Tennessee-based DOT Ready, that's one word, DOT Ready, proposed 3 amendments to existing regulations, reduce the employment history requirement on driver applications to 3 years, expand the pre-employment screening program to include safety-related termination reporting with a rebuttal process, enhance CDL legal status, and identity verification. And all of this, a lot of the big talk around here is, how do we make sure the people who are driving, in fact, are up to snuff before we ever give them a CDL? Goes right back to your original point, right, Rico? We've got to figure out a way to make sure that it never gets to the point where they ever get on the road. Agreed?
Right, and the reason that I'm, coming from my standpoint, I'll just give you a little bit of brief history on where I moved from South Carolina to Georgia. When I went down to the DMV to change my driver's license over, the paperwork that I had to go through in order to get my license transferred over. I'm already licensed in South Carolina, but to get my Georgia address and get a new Georgia license, man, I had to go back and get birth certificates and all kind of stuff. And I was like, geez, Louise, I never had the experience this much red tape in order to get a license. So that's what kind of baffles my mind, how some of these other people are able to get a license when I'm naturally born right here in the United States, and I had to jump through flaming hoops, it felt like, to get my new state driver's license.
I think part of the issue, too, is the fact that you also experiencing Brian Kemp's Georgia as opposed to other states, which might make it a whole lot easier. And that's one of the other problems why people are looking to shut down loopholes and non-domiciled and all of that stuff. I think because in many ways that you heard the expression judge shopping. This is almost like CDL shopping, where you're trying to find the state where the least path of resistance is actually there. Rico, we're going to run out of time. What are you looking towards this week? What's happening with you this week that you're kind of keeping your eye on?
Well, this week I'm encouraging a lot of people, especially independent drivers, start making some process to try to build more and more relationships to maybe develop your own direct customers. You have the ability to do it, ladies and gentlemen. I know it's not the easiest thing to do, but start trying to make strides to make a friend somewhere at one of these shippers, one of these warehouses. Just ride around maybe on the weekend so you can identify a place that you might be able to go into to get a direct contact, and try to develop those relationships so that you can start to isolate yourself a little bit from the swings of the spot market.
Rates and Lanes podcast. He does it with our good friend Chuck Snow. Rico Muhammad is the owner and operator of Crescent Carriers LLC, a trucking company he founded all the way back in 2010. Doesn't seem that long ago. Good God Almighty, it's 15 years. Congratulations for your continued success, Rico. And as always, we'll have you back on sooner rather than later.
Thanks, guys. Have a great one.